He's not just your average serial killer, he's a devout satanic worshiper who paints his crime scenes with the fresh blood of his victims. And now, for his ultimate grand sacrifice, he plans to wipe an entire city off the map in a devastating nuclear meltdown, leaving us with one final question: who will survive, this heartless monster, or humanity? Let's dive in. A lone police officer is on patrol when he spots a suspicious car, and after pulling it over, the tension in the air instantly skyrockets. Inside, the driver secretly slides a loaded handgun right under his leg, refusing to speak a word or even show his face when asked for his license. Just as the confrontation escalates, another squad car pulls up, and out steps Officer Jane, who is not just a fellow cop, but the first officer's wife. Sensing the tension, she asks if everything is under control, and her husband, wanting to keep her out of harm's way, assures her that he has it handled and tells her to head out. Jane starts to turn her car around, but as she glances in her rearview mirror, she sees the driver arguing violently with her husband. Sensing danger, she prepares to rush back, but before she can even put the car in reverse, a gunshot rings out. Her husband falls, dead before she can even reach his side. Jane frantically fires at the fleeing suspect, but he manages to dodge the shots and slip away. The scene cuts to a hotel room, where the killer sits in silence as a television news broadcast plays in the background, reporting on a ruthless killer who has already claimed 16 innocent lives. Fully aware that the entire country is hunting him, the killer slips into a strange backroom to sleep, keeping a sharp utility knife close by for any sudden emergencies. By the next morning, the killer is already back on the hunt, tailing a woman down the street. She pulls up to a pharmacy and heads inside, completely unaware that he is watching her every move. The moment she returns to her vehicle, she is met with a horrific surprise. The killer is already waiting in her car. Before she can even realize what is happening, he kills her, takes her keys, and slips back into the pharmacy to raid the shelves for a massive stash of strange prescription drugs. Meanwhile, Jane is drowning in grief, shattered by her husband's death and consumed by frustration over the department's inability to track the killer down. When news breaks of this latest murder, Jane realizes she is dealing with a psycho who will never stop on his own. Fueled by a desire for justice, she bypasses protocol and begins gathering her own evidence. But while she works, the body count rapidly climbs, with the killer claiming 10 more victims to bring his terrifying tally to 32. With the case growing so serious, the FBI officially takes over, leaving Jane sidelined with virtually no authority. Knowing she has to solve this personally, she watches from the sidelines as the killer strikes again. Driving down the road, he spots a couple stranded with a flat tire. The husband is busy working on the wheel while the wife waits inside, making them the perfect targets. The killer pulls over, slips on his mask, grabs a heavy rod from his car, and brutally strikes the husband dead with a single blow. Hearing her husband scream, the terrified wife runs out, only to find him lifeless and the masked killer standing right behind her. Panicked and running for her life, she bolts into the road, straight into the path of an oncoming truck. The driver tries to slam on the brakes, but the heavy vehicle flips, triggering a massive, fiery explosion that claims both the woman and the driver. Watching the spectacle from a distance, the killer calmly walks over to the woman's body, dips his fingers in her blood, and paints a chilling symbol of Satan on the car, revealing a dark, ritualistic motive behind his horrific crusade. As the FBI team scrambles to piece the clues together, Jane tries to join the investigation, pleading with them that she knows the killer's patterns and wants to help solve the case. But her offer is coldly rejected, leaving her devastated. Seeing her pain, Rebecca, a sympathetic FBI detective, decides to break the rules. She meets Jane in secret at a hotel after hours, illegally sharing their highly classified files. While Jane believed the killer lived out of his car, Rebecca reveals he actually stays in different hotels, leaving behind elaborate occult symbols that suggest he belongs to a cult. Using Rebecca's laptop to dig deeper into the database, Jane finally uncovers the true identity of the monster they are hunting, a man named Richard. Inside the hotel room, Jane and Rebecca dive into the files, trying to map out the killer's next move. But just as they prepare to leave, Rebecca receives a jarring update. A massive explosion has rocked a nearby mall, and the bomb used matches the exact military-grade explosives the killer recently stole from a murdered arms dealer. Meanwhile, the predator is already preparing his next strike. He takes a metal pipe, sharpens one end into a lethal spike, and heads to a church the following morning. Under the guise of a holy confession, he lures the priest into a secluded room, drives the sharpened pipe straight into the man's throat, and drinks his blood through the tube. Following a trail of clues, Jane tracks the killer to his current hotel. She describes his appearance to the manager, who doesn't recognize the description but points out a guest registered under the name Richard. Gun drawn, Jane cautiously clears the room, finding an empty suitcase and a discarded shotgun in the bathroom. But as she steps back into the main room, the killer bursts out from a hidden closet, launching a vicious attack. Jane fights back desperately in self-defense, sparking a brutal, chaotic scuffle. Outmatching her strength, the killer hurls Jane through the glass window and leaps out after her, speeding away in his getaway car and leaving a stunned Jane behind. Refusing to back down, Jane thoroughly sweeps the crime scene, uncovering a treasure trove of evidence the killer carelessly left behind, which maps out his exact next target. At the same time, the killer meets up with a man named Calvin. Calvin explains that they saw his ad in the newspaper and recognized him as a fellow member of a militant cult. Believing they share a grander, satanic purpose, Calvin invites him to their secluded compound. But when the killer arrives, he finds the members heavily drugged and engaging in bizarre rituals, realizing this isn't a true military organization but a twisted, self-made cult. He keeps his distance, retreating to a private room with Calvin, the only member who seems clear-headed. Having earned his trust, the killer removes his mask and asks Calvin to track down a specific target based only on their occupation. While waiting, the killer turns on the television and sees Jane giving a bold news interview about the manhunt. Amused and delighted by her persistence, he calls the police station the very next day, asking specifically for her. Once transferred, he taunts Jane, telling her he enjoys the chase and promises to keep leaving a trail of breadcrumbs for her to follow. The mocking call leaves Jane astonished and hypervigilant, knowing the monster is actively playing a game with her. Back at the compound, the cult's leader, Thomas, forces the heavily drugged members into increasingly absurd and degrading acts. Offended by the pathetic display, the killer decides he has seen enough. Now that Calvin has successfully handed over the target's name, address, and phone number, the killer's mission here is complete. He pulls Calvin aside, warning him to walk away from these people before walking back into the mansion armed with an axe and a can of gasoline. He unleashes a brutal massacre, hacking down the cult members one by one before splitting Thomas's head open, ending the leader's life in a spray of blood. He douses the mansion in gasoline and sets the entire compound ablaze. As he prepares to escape the burning ruins, he spots a shadow by the window. Suspecting an ambush, he places his mask on a stick and hovers it past the frame as bait. A sniper bullet instantly shatters the mask, fired by Jane, who successfully tracked him down using his left-behind clues. Seeing her target bolt, Jane rushes to her car and ignites a high-speed pursuit. However, the killer outmaneuvers her, ramming her vehicle so hard it crashes into a deep ditch, leaving her trapped and furious. By the time the FBI agents arrive at the flaming compound, the killer is long gone. Jane had warned them well in advance, but their arrogance caused them to delay, shattering whatever trust Jane had left in the bureau. With his new coordinates in hand, the killer arrives at the home of his next target, a man named Bill. Finding the house empty, he breaks the lock, slips into the basement, and begins assembling his homemade bombs. He waits patiently in the shadows until evening, when Bill and his wife finally return home, stepping right into a terrifying trap as the killer emerges from the dark. The killer blackmails the man, warning him that if he wants his wife to live, he must follow every single instruction. Meanwhile, Jane is on his trail again, deciphering his breadcrumbs to arrive at a seemingly empty building. Scanning the structure, she notices the letters 3 miles scrawled on a window. Puzzled, she lifts her sniper rifle, looking through the scope at the distant horizon, until her eyes land on a massive nuclear facility, the 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant. Suddenly, everything clicks. The date written at the previous crime scene was today's date. The killer's ultimate, twisted masterpiece isn't just a string of murders, it is the total annihilation of the city through a catastrophic nuclear meltdown, spreading deadly radiation to surrounding regions. This reveals why the killer targeted this specific man. He is the plant manager of 3 Mile Island. Holding the manager's wife hostage inside the trunk of his own car, the killer forces the terrified husband to drive him past security and straight into the facility. Slipping into an alleyway, they encounter 2 guards, whom the killer instantly eliminates with 2 small, lethal grenades. As they push deeper, he guns down 2 more guards with a shotgun, storming the central control room and forcing the terrified staff out at gunpoint. Realizing the impending doom, Jane rushes to the facility, warning the skeptical security force to lock down the perimeter. Almost instantly, the emergency alarms begin to blare, proving her right. Jane leads the armed team inside, only to find a trail of dead guards and panicked workers fleeing the core area. Inside the locked control room, the killer holds a gun to the manager's head, threatening to execute his wife. Driven by sheer desperation to save her, the manager complies and initiates the critical reactor sequence. But the moment the system is activated, the killer cold-bloodedly guns him down anyway. With the countdown initiated, the killer pulls off his shirt, revealing a massive vest of explosives strapped to his chest. He plans to commit suicide, detonating himself to ensure the factory is entirely destroyed. While the guards suggest negotiating, Jane shuts them down, knowing a monster who has murdered over 50 people cannot be reasoned with. As the tactical team struggles to breach the reinforced door, time is rapidly running out. A guard points out an upper observation window overlooking the room, and without hesitation, Jane sprints to the vantage point. Sighting through her sniper rifle, she fires a barrage of high-caliber rounds to shatter the heavy glass. She shoots the killer in the leg to pin him down, but with his hands still free, he reaches to detonate the main charge. Reacting with split-second precision, Jane fires again, disabling his hand, before landing a final, fatal shot to his head. The immediate threat is neutralized, and her husband's death is avenged, but the danger is far from over. A live grenade lies burning on the control room floor, threatening to trigger the explosives. Just before disaster strikes, the guards breach the door and successfully deactivate the device, saving the city from a nuclear apocalypse. In a shocking post-credits twist, it is revealed that the killer did not die from his gunshot wounds that day. He survived, remaining in heavily guarded police custody on his way to a maximum security prison. Yet, the question haunts Jane as she tries to rebuild her life. Can a prison truly hold a monster of this caliber, or is he simply waiting for his next opportunity to strike? With the court's final sentencing locked in, Jane is left with a lingering, unsatisfying dread as the screen fades to black. And with that, our story comes to an end. So if you enjoyed this ride, make sure to smash that subscribe button, leave a like, and drop your thoughts down in the comments below, because I'd love to know what you think.